So the founding idea comes from several years back. One of the co-founders' roommate, he was a lawyer. He spent 4 months just summarizing and putting together court cases. So why do I study law for 4 years just to do this thing? He expressed frustration. The best tools are going to be created when you marry sort of machine intelligence, knowledge on how to build great product with domain-specific expertise. That's what we're building with Legora. It's not replacement for the legal professional, but it's an empowerment of how can I do more and better work with the time that I have.
So what are the peculiarities of our industry?
Everybody was saying how conservative the legal industry is, and we're seeing the complete opposite.
Yeah,
right?
I think that we both work with code.
Yeah.
You guys work with computer code and we work with legal code. So how do you think it's Legora being the operating system for lawyers?
Moving from being a system that you go to solve a specific thing, right? Like you kind of need to be more integrated in all of the daily work. I like to view like every feature as a boat, and then when the model rises the sea, then everything gets better.
Yeah. Welcome to a new episode of Pérez-Llorcast, your podcast on technology and law. And today we have a very special, and I truly mean it, honor guest, Max Junestrand, who is the CEO and co-founder of formerly known as Leia. Now it's Legora. It's an AI agent AI tool that we have been using at Pérez-Llorca for over a year. Thank you very much, Max, for coming all the way from Sweden to Madrid to record this podcast.
Thank you so much, Andy. I'm grateful to be here.
So we have 30 minutes, more or less, probably a little bit more ahead. And I'd like to talk about first, I think you are one of the fathers of Legora. So explain a little bit what's Legora and how it's helping lawyers to be way better.
Yeah, absolutely. So the founding idea for what became Legora comes from several years back. Back in college, one of the co-founders' roommates, he was a lawyer, and he was doing these big internships, working in big law, working in a court. And what ended up happening is he spent 4 months over an entire summer just summarizing and putting together court cases. And he expressed such, frustration over that type of task. And, why do I study law for 4 years just to do this thing? And back then, the early AI models weren't powerful enough to really solve those things, like BERT and the early transformer.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is when ChatGPT came, it was the paradigm shift needed to, excel the amount of use cases and the tools you could build. Since then, we were very quick to realize that the best tools are going to be created when you marry sort of machine intelligence, knowledge on how to build great product with domain-specific expertise.
Yeah.
And so we started building a tool that you could upload a single contract into, and you could have a conversation with it. And this was before, chat with my PDF existed.
Okay.
We had that little demo, that little tool, and then we realized, wow, this is, the capabilities here are so much larger or grander than this.
Back in 2020, around?
Back in 2023.
Okay.
So the first sort of POC we put together was very simple, and then we realized, wow, okay, we started showing it to people, and the feedback we got was tremendously positive. And so we said, all right, let's put everything else on ice. I dropped out of university, and we started working on this. Since then, it's just been an explosion, both in like what we can build as the models improve, but also like the quality of the software. Yeah. Before Gen AI, I feel like there was, you ended up having 10 different tools, one for comparisons, one for translations, one for
due diligences.
Right.
Yeah.
And now generative AI kind of solves for a lot of those use cases. And so integrating them into a cohesive suite of features gives a lot of extra value. And that's what we're building with Legora. It's not a replacement for the legal professional or for the task, but it's an empowerment of how can I do more
and
better work with the time that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you that we at Pérez-Llorca, we try 5-6 years ago, before the transformer architecture came in with the different AIs. Even we developed our AI with another provider.
Right.
And it was a specific purpose tool, and not very competent. It needed a lot of training. But I agree with you that with a generative AI, it's now a completely different level. And what we are now doing is to find the best use cases for each lawyer.
Yeah.
So your background is, I read somewhere that your background is more technical. Also, gaming.
Yes.
You were a professional gamer.
I didn't make that much per hour, but before university, I was playing Dota 2 very seriously.
Well, that's also you come for a very challenging and very I wouldn't say competitive sector.
I would say it's very competitive.
And the skills that I guess that you gain there, you are using now with Legora, and also these times. And I think that we are living with AI, that it's difficult to keep up the pace.
Oh yeah. I mean, we spend our time doing nothing else but this, and we're still, basically keeping up or trying to keep up. And I think to just finish on the point you made earlier, a lot of the tools didn't used to work in non-English languages. And with the GPT models, suddenly it became possible to work in Spanish or Swedish. And I think that also unlocked a completely new paradigm in terms of what you could build.
Yeah.
But no, it's coming from that background. Obviously, we're here to build great products, and we're not settling for anything less. I think in the legal tech market, there has been a trend where successful startups end up selling to the much larger players like Litera or Thomson Reuters. And sadly enough, a lot of the functionality and the sort of the fire that keeps those companies going in the early age, they die out or they blow out, right? And so
that's a very good point, because I think that and finally they became more rigid or less agile or less creative as initially they were intended to.
Exactly, right? And the way that we've approached things is how do you rethink a lot of the sort of the knowledge that you have today, and how do you truly empower collaborativeness and the lawyer of the future, which we're doing together.
We will talk about a little bit more about you want Legora to be the operating system of lawyers. We will talk about it, and that's a very cool concept. But how are before going into that, you were saying that you don't have a legal background, more engineer, more technical. So what are the peculiarities or the nuances of our industry? Why we think that we always heard that we are different or a little bit more special than others. Any anecdotes that you have?
So starting to work in the legal space, one of the things that I had to do was very quickly get up to speed and learn. And I think we've been able to do that in a couple of ways. So one, there's maybe 10-15 lawyers now working at Legora internally. And we very quickly said, all right, if 3 software guys go into a dark room and try to think about what the future of legal work looks like, we're not going to come up with the best solution. So for me, I've approached everything with a very open mind. It's been about, all right, how do you take a process like due diligence or a process of document review or drafting, and then you need to break that down. And I think I approach it with some level of naiveness to a good extent, in terms of you're not locked down with, all right, this is how it's always been done, so we need to keep it that way. But you need to be you need to honor the existing ways of doing things. And one of the things that maybe has surprised me the most is everybody was saying how conservative the legal industry is and how, lawyers work on the billable hour. There's no incentive to ever change. And we're seeing the complete opposite, right? Like we're seeing firms and in-house team adopt a very strong change management perspective and to think about, all right, what does this imply for our existing service lines? How could we offer this type of service with a faster turnaround, with a higher quality? How could we rethink the way that we collaborate between law firm and client? Because I think there's just a ton of work to be done. And historically, I don't think a lot of effort has gone into building great tools in this space, maybe because the technology wasn't so exciting. The coolest thing you could do was like document automation. And maybe that's not the...
Well, I think that you guys have arrived, and I fully agree with you. 20 years ago, all the tools were for the legal sector were very boring. We are word-proof lawyers in general terms, or 20 years ago, we were more reluctant to adapt new technologies. 10 years ago, there were the first wave of legal tech with a lot of startups with tools focused for legal professionals, whether it's if you are a law firm, a big one, or a small, or even the in-house team of a corporation. So, but the offer was very vast, and with a lot of frustration many times. And now we think, I agree with you that lawyers, we are not that old-fashioned like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. We adopt technology, or we are a little bit more open to adopt technologies. And when this Gen AI and you guys come with a very powerful tool, so we are more eager to adapt it. But
and I gotta say, it's also very large differences between the firms, right?
You see that?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, you and the rest of the firm here have had a very progressive mindset since, we met here first a year ago. And look at all we've done in the past 12 months. Some firms are still discussing whether or not to be on-prem or on cloud. And I think that was a conversation to be had like a couple of years ago. So there's very large differences in the market and sophistication.
Probably. And how we think that AI can make us way better. So how is the interaction? Because I like to say that traditionally, or there are some stereotypes that lawyers and engineers, we don't get along. But in my opinion, I disagree, because I think that we both work with code. You guys work with computer code, and we work with legal code. And I always tell my students when we have to when we draft a contract, we are programming a commercial relationship between two parties, and you have to say if this, then do that. With the logics of the programming quite similar. So how is the interaction? You as the CEO of Legora, how do you see the interaction in the team between lawyers, the lawyers that help you to develop new features, and the engineers that put them into practice?
This is a great question, Andy. And almost all the prompts inside of Legora have been developed by lawyers. So I think it's easier to teach a lawyer, like the domains, who has the domain knowledge about how to prompt and how to quote unquote code an LLM, than it is to teach an engineer, how to be a fantastic lawyer, because it takes years of not only training but then practice. Most of the lawyers that are working at Legora today have some sort of technical interest, right? Like they've maybe previously been head of legal tech at a firm, or they have been coding on the side. And I think the marriage between them, and when you kind of put two people in a room and then you say, all right, this is the problem we're going to solve, now come up with a solution, that surprises me every day. Just to give you an example, a week and a half ago, we decided that we're going to build out a bespoke playbook feature into our Word add-in. Like we decided a week and a half ago that we were going to build it. Last night, we got a live demo of it in the office, and it was working fantastically. And then it's one of the engineers who's just, I think, had a lot of Red Bull this week and was working hard. And then the lawyer in the team, Robin in this case, who was working with him through the entire journey on basically encoding his way of, okay, let's say you have a playbook and let's say you have a contract. How do you then apply all the rules and how do you apply all the questions? And if that, then what? So if this is breached, what are you going to do? Well, maybe escalate to partner or suggest this standard language. And the process of having done, thousands of those reviews himself and then just encoding it into an LLM that we now can sort of share with the world, I think is incredible. And in many ways, we're just building the building blocks for people like yourself and others to kind of expand upon it and build the next version, and to apply it not only in a client-specific need, but a domain-specific world.
I agree that there's a lot of room for improvement in not only in the technology that we use, lawyers, I'm talking in general terms, but also the processes that we apply. But I think that in the past, I agree with you that we didn't have law firms, we didn't have an incentive to innovate, but now first that the whole market is pushing us to innovate, and second, our clients demand us. And this is something that very recently in a request for a proposal, we have to address you guys and ask, because they said, what AI are you using? Because they are demanding us to use AI. So this is something that not only because the market is demanding lawyers to be more innovative and more forward-looking in this regard.
And do you feel like every partner is like on that, or do you see a big difference in the partnership?
Well, there's a different, and now it's you interviewing me, which is good. It means that the conversation is flowing. But I think that it's like always. There's different speeds. Probably the lawyers in the IP department, or with a high pace. Or the departments like M&A, that the pace is very high, so they are more open to new technologies than other partners. But the whole context also, I think that at the end, sooner or later, all partners will have to adapt. So definitely there's some differences, but I think that sooner or later all partners move forward. So and I don't know if you can explain a little bit how Legora, from a technical point of view, how it works and how the quality of the models that they use and the transformer, how the transformer architecture is helping you to help us to provide new services, and how do you think that it will develop in the future, not with foundation LLMs, but with reasoning models? Like the super last trend.
The super interesting, and maybe to give a high level overview of like exactly what Legora is and what features we have. So we've come at it from first off, like a pretty general point of view, and then with that toolbox, we want to solve for a lot of different use cases. So the platform is built into three main features. It's the assistant, which is a conversational-based chat. It's tabular review, which is essentially, how do you fire off 10,000 parallel questions? You mentioned due diligence or e-discovery or these types of tasks. And then it's the word add-in that's supposed to serve as sort of your bread and butter co-pilot inside where you're already used to reviewing and drafting. Inside each of those, we leverage a combination of models. So from very early on, actually we couldn't afford fine-tuning models back in 2023. So we said, all right, let's not fine-tune, but let's build an architecture in which it's very easy to swap out the models.
But sorry for interrupting you, but that's with some time that was a great success from your side, because before we met you guys, all we saw were fine-tunings of GPT, and we were very unsatisfied with the result.
Yeah, and I think it's like you're wasting money, you're wasting time, you're burning the world's resources.
Yeah.
Just improving a model, let's say 5%, and then next month a new model comes out.
Yeah.
So I like to view like every layer feature as a boat, and then when the model rises the sea, then everything gets better.
Yeah.
The reasoning models are allowing us to, in short, solve more complex tasks.
Yeah.
But the way it actually works is we might use a model like O1 to do the kind of pre-planning, to say, all right, here's the big task Andy gave me. I'm going to break that down into subtasks or into a plan.
Yeah.
And then you can, depending on how big it is, you don't want to wait for 5 minutes for a response. So you might use faster models to then go and run all the subtasks. Let's say you upload 20 documents and you might run sub models on each of those, and then you bubble it all up and then give a broader response. The other thing that O1 is incredibly good at is being more exhaustive. So in the word add-in, for instance, if you say, my Spanish still isn't great, although I studied it all throughout high school. But let's say you want to change all the wording from feminine spelling to or let's say you translate a document from English to Spanish and then you need to correct all of it. Then it can do that across the entire document.
Yeah.
Or you can say, hey, here's a playbook. Now run this playbook across 50 clauses.
Yeah.
And GPT-O wasn't capable of doing all of that, but O1 can because it's more capable. And I think from an application layer perspective, it's fantastic. Like, we just want the models to get better and preferably cheaper, because that means we can do even more exciting things.
This is the kind of task, and very simple, that we have seen. We see that it's very frustrating for lawyers that they have gone to the law school, they study a lot, not to replace the
that's what I mean,
or the feminine, but it's a real cases that we are that we can do something instead of in 2 or 3 hours in 2 minutes.
Exactly, and it's not work that you'd preferably want to bill for either.
Of course,
right? It's like a write-off.
Of course,
and I think it's about, well, how do we, deliver more value faster and have less write-offs, right?
Yeah.
Or to expand the terms of services that we can offer. To also touch on like the more legal specific work we can do. One of the first kind of end-to-end tasks that we did was the creation of a limited partnership agreement report. So an LPA, it's like this long agreement stipulating like the terms of a fund.
Yeah.
And you might ask your law firm or lawyer to, read through all of that and create a report that's more digestible.
Yeah.
And you can also leave like a comment in terms of whether or not thing is market. And running this extraction back on GPT 3.5, we got to like 25% accuracy, or like 25% of the answers were equally good or better than the manual version.
Yeah.
And then with GPT 4.0, when that came out and we like redid the exercise, and also with better prompt tuning from our side, we got it to being like
better results.
Yeah, it was equally good.
Yeah.
And that means that this used to be a thing that an associate had to spend 3 days on putting together, and now they could get a first draft in 5 minutes that they can then sort of serve as a starting point.
Yeah.
And now with the integration with Word, we can also take that extraction, actually draft it in the firm style.
Yeah.
Because again, you study law to solve problems and to do interesting things, not to format inside a Word.
Yeah, which is a big problem for, especially when you are a junior associate that spend a lot of time. I think that you were referring to different models, 4.0, GPT 3.5, etc. Back in 2022, when GPT-3 came out, there was a big problems with hallucinations.
Yeah.
We saw some cases in the States where lawyers were using GPT on court, and the judges say, hey, you made up this court ruling, doesn't exist. So I know that for you guys, for Legora, it was a big thing that you have to prevent, because we have zero margin for errors for this kind of hallucination.
Yeah.
How do you? I think that this is not a big problem right now, but I would like to know from a technical standpoint. But back in the days, how did you address hallucinations?
So one of the first things we ended up building was like a citator, right? That built in citations. So when Legora was providing a response, it was using it was grounding that answer in the underlying content, and it was showing exactly where it was grabbing it from. Hallucinations still aren't like solved, but this way of working like drastically reduces it. And we aren't yet at the point where Legora or any other system delivers the full end deliverable. And the way that you work in a premier law firm is, well, the associate, the partner comes up with the plan. An associate starts with a first draft, it gets reviewed by a senior associate, and then it gets reviewed by a partner. And Legora fits into that sort of staircase. It's not, I give it the task, I give it the prompt, then I take that and I just send it to the client. No, it's part of the review ladder of a premier law firm, right?
And that's why we think that it's important to understand and the special partnership and that we have with Legora and Pérez-Llorca, that it can be these kind of AI tools can be a plug and play solution, but probably it will not fit in the whole structure of a company or even a law firm without some kind of implementation or some kind of adaptation, because it's in that structure it depends also how is the company, how is the legal team. So how do you think it's Legora we talk about being the operating system for lawyers? So explain a little bit this concept, and how do you think that we will be interacting with Legora? Probably it's too ambitious to say in 5 years time.
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Nobody knows. But in 2 or 3 years, how do you think that we will be interacting, or we will be dealing with any kind of project?
I mean, so the hot topic on LinkedIn is agents, right? And
right now it's agents.
And I mean,
explain a little bit what's an agent, an AI agent, and how do you envision agents in Legora, and then we look into the future.
So I think most of the things that are being called agentic today are workflows with some level of flexibility, right? At least my personal take on what an agentic structure means is that you give it a very sort of high level task. It breaks that task down into a plan, and then based on the tools that it has access to, it executes on that plan. And then it does so not in a deterministic way, not in the sense that, first you always do 1, then you do 2, then you do 3. But it comes up with its own plan and then executes on it. And then based on its interaction with the outside world or the outside tools, it's able to flexibly figure its way out like along that way, and then produce you with some level of result. It's like a full end-to-end deliverable from that thing. And you can break that down into large tasks and large chains or smaller, right? So I believe that as the reasoning capabilities of the models improve, as the context window increases, as they're capable of keeping more things in memory and just doing more things like end-to-end, lawyers will need a place to sort of orchestrate and run those workflows from, right?
When do you think that we will see AI? Like, I'm not talking about AGI, or maybe not, there's a lot of speculation, 3 years and 5 years that we will have AGI. But right now I agree with you that AI in general, it's extremely powerful for very specific things, and if you have to give it a lot of context, or you have to give some RAG. And if you give or if you ask something very broad, as you are explaining now with reasoning models, it can break down. But do you think that we are ready there, or how do you think? When do you think that we will be able to also get some assistance by AI to break down all these different processes in a big project?
So I think the where AI is today, it's not capable of handling the full project, right?
Yeah.
But if you take the project and you break it down into, all right, here's a checklist of 10 things we need to do or 30 things. And then I believe that today already AI can deliver, up to 90% on each of those 10 steps.
I agree.
But they still require somebody to project manage, if you will, the entire thing and provide the AI with the context. As it develops more, and frankly, it's not only the AI actually, but it's all the software around it. Because the one thing that the AI will never have unless you provide it is the context.
Yeah.
So you need to give it the context of the client or the context of the engagement. And maybe you were on a phone call and the client said something that you only know. You actually need to tell the AI.
Yeah.
Or maybe the future looks like it's recording your phone call and it's taking notes and it's keeping that in the sort of memory of that project.
Well, we see that already with Copilot and Teams, that they I think it's a very good job on transcripting and then identifying who is all the different duties and tasks it has to do. Yeah,
but then you need to take that and also sort of pass it down the chain of where you're working. But to your point earlier around like how does the interface look like 2 to 3 years from now? I believe it will be more of a dashboard where you're governing work from underlying workflows or agents, and you're setting up clear tasks and then you're watching it deliver on them and you're reviewing the work.
Do you see Legora? I would love that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you see Legora also getting our emails, classifying which one are important, which one are more urgent, even suggesting an answer, or if this one has an attachment, a document, and the client asks to review it, the Legora automatically review the agreement and suggest the changes. Do you think that that's too ambitious, or
not at all? I love this idea that you're bringing up around proactive AI. I think all the systems that exist today, whether or not it's AI for engineers or marketing or legal, you always need to tell it what to do. It's never just doing things for you. But the difficult part about like doing things for you is you need to predict it correctly all the time. Because if it starts doing the wrong thing, you're gonna be like, what is this? But I believe a lot in that paradigm or that sort of shift.
Some of it's already here. It's like with some clients, they access to always to review in the agreements some specific points that they are the policies of the company. And we have created some our associates that they have created some prompts that it's safe in the library. So every time, it's super. And Legora says you have to change this, you have to change to comply and to adapt, so we can be more efficient. We can be go straight to the point and to do other kind of tasks that are. So it's part of this proactivity, passive, active. It's already here, but I would love to see.
It needs to be more integrated, right? And it's to the point earlier around like
integration with iManage, integration with Intralinks.
Right, exactly. And it's, I think it's the whole like, okay, today I have a very fractured working space, and how do you bring it all together in a very nice way? Yeah.
So what about the OS for lawyers, the operating system?
I love the slogan. Maybe we should steal it.
Yeah. How do you think that it can be the operating system along with...
So I believe to be the operating system, for me, that means it's the tool that you open when you come to work in the morning. And it's the thing that you close in the evening, right? It's sort of like always there. I think to get to that point, there's a couple of challenges. One of them is moving from being a system that you go to solve a specific thing, and then you go somewhere else, right? Like you kind of need to be more integrated in all of the daily work. And maybe ideally you don't even close it in the evening. You say, all right, Legora, overnight I want you to do like these 10 things.
Yeah.
And then you come to work in the morning and you have your coffee and you start reviewing the work.
Yeah.
I don't think that's far away. I mean, we've done all of this in a year and a half since we started working. And
well, it's a trend. Automation, it's a trend. Yeah. A lot of industry are automating everything. And there's amazing tools out there like Zapier that you can do. And I also think that this is something that lawyers, especially for repetitive tasks, we need to understand how to program a bot or an AI to help us to get rid of these boring tasks.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be like programming like in the low code, no code way, but it's like you just tell it what to do and then it understands it. But I think to your point around like integrating with Outlook, you know, like most partners I know, the first thing they open up when they wake up is like Outlook, like, oh, did anything happen during the night? Yeah. So of course you need to integrate with where the knowledge is coming in from. And frankly, like many even like managing partners we work with, like they maybe don't want to adopt a new software for their desktop because all they're doing is running around with their phone all day. Yeah. So maybe they should just email Legora. And get a response there.
I get a response. It's quite old-fashioned, but if it works,
I mean, we're not going to go all the way to fax, but but yeah, for email, sure.
And how do you see the Spanish legal market landscape? Do you think that in how many countries are you working already after almost 2 years? And you established the company 2 years ago. So the last 2 years for you, I guess that they've been very exciting. I don't know if more than like were you a gamer or now, but how do you see us? How do you see Spain and Spanish? Now we are more a global law firm, but
you are.
How do you see the Spanish landscape?
So we started working in Stockholm, Sweden. The second country that we arrived in was Spain.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure if we're going to coin a new term with the sort of classic Sweden-Spain pincer movement of Europe, but I have been blown away by the reception and by the like enthusiasm. I think there might be some, prejudice around, all right, like the US and the Nordics and like the UK are the first adopters of tools like this, but we've quite honestly seen the opposite. Spain for us has been a total success story, and where we're also keen to invest even more. We're hiring more people locally in Spain, and we're like doubling down on the country as a market. On the personal side, I mean, the last 2 years feel like 10 years in terms of like personal growth and the challenges we've been through. When we started the company, we were like 3 guys with access to GPT, and now we're in 15 countries, we're 60 people, and we're going at it like faster than ever. But it's also tremendously fun to bring together a team that's as equally excited as I am to deliver on this vision.
Because when we were trying different tools 2 years ago, after ChatGPT came out, the version 3 came out, we wanted to be not a passive protagonist of this revolution, but we wanted to be active. And one of the reasons we decided to partner with you guys was that you let us be proactive on, and we never expect that you were so active. I mean, I remember that some ideas when we give you ideas and we expect to have them implemented in a month or 2 months, you said, no, it's going to be next week. And how are your sprints? How are your...
Oh, that's a great question. So, I mean, internally, we're organized in, broadly speaking, go-to-market, which consists of many lawyers and a couple of like ex-MBB people, product and engineering. And in the engineering team, we have weekly sprints. So we plan for a couple of quarters, but then we break that down into weekly sprints. If it's not a week, is it really a sprint? You know? And actually, every other Friday, we do these demo sessions internally, where all the engineers are asked to demo what they built during the last 2 weeks. And it's a very nice sort of culture thing that we've been able to, I think, also keep as we've grown the company in
Which
size.
Which is very difficult.
Yeah, right. But we have those sessions every other Friday, and everybody from the company joins in. And we just get to sit and watch and enjoy for like an hour when everybody goes through what they built and they show it live.
And you feel proud.
You feel super proud. And you know, the sales team gets excited that there's new functionality to be rolled out with our clients. And the engineers are excited that, you know, people are enjoying the work that they're doing. And I think the most challenging thing, and what I sort of, you know, think about every day, is, are we building the right thing?
Yeah.
You know, given how quick everything is moving, given all the input that we're getting, are we prioritizing correctly? Because it feels like there's a million things we could be doing.
Yeah.
So are we doing the top 10? You know,
especially because you have an extremely powerful and wide tool that it's used very differently by a tax lawyer or a technology lawyer, and not only that horizontally but also vertically by a junior associate or a partner. So you have to know who you want to satisfy,
who you want to build for. And I think that's also one of our advantages if you compare, you know, when I look at something like Microsoft Copilot, they need to serve everyone. You know, my dad sells boats. He uses Copilot, and some of the best lawyers I know use Copilot. But they can't use it for the same things. And I was talking with a US firm the other day who said, we rolled out Copilot and people tried to do legal research in it. And it was a complete failure. And I was like, well, of course, like that makes sense, because that's not what the tool is supposed to do.
So let's finish with the future. What do you think that will be, or are the main barriers that you are finding for law firms preventing them to implement or preventing us to implement tools like Legora?
Our biggest competition is non-movement. It's accepting
and do you find it
the status quo
much, or do you think that
it's I think it's on a curve where, you know, the early movers have already moved, and now the big mass is sort of, you know, pushing all right back. Like it's about to kind of fall out. But in the market, like, we're seeing basically infinite demand for what we're doing. It's just a question of like, how quickly can we roll it out at the quality that we want? Because a big part of all of this is also the upskilling, the adoption. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we can say, all right, here's 500 licenses or access to the software. Good luck, have fun. You know, we're still at the point where we're working with them in workshops. We're doing proper onboardings. We are basically driving the general AI knowledge in the firms, and that's, I think, particularly observable also in the in-house industry. So in-house legal teams are now, you know, as they see their counsel apply AI, they're getting curious, and they're getting excited about, all right, now could we take some of this technology in-house as well? And, you know, to the point around you know, maybe simple contract review, or just staying up to date on kind of like what's the latest and greatest coming in. Those things do themselves very well internally, or for in-house corporates, when you also combine that with kind of domain-specific expertise.
So that, and I agree with you. And also something that we found very, very fast, very quick last year when we started using Leia at the time, now Legora, it's that you need to show people how to embrace technology, and the training is extremely important, because otherwise they, as you said before, a lot of people think that this is a search engine or a case law search engine, and internally it's mandatory at Pérez-Llorca for all junior associates to be trained on AI and how it's used, and this training is not partners are we are also involved in this training, and not only how to use but also the legal implication, the AI Act, in my case copyright, all the copyright conflicts that we have seen all around the world on this generative AI. So they have a very open and wide understanding on how this extremely powerful tool works. Because otherwise, we think that you don't have all the knowledge to navigate or to use it.
And I gotta say, I think massive credit to when all the new associates joined in, was it September? And we saw on the graphs like, oh, big usage spike, like what's going on?
They have to use it. We tell them you have to use it.
And we heard like, no, we just onboarded like the new batch to the firm, and of course like Leia or Legora was part of that.
It's another associate it's joining. It's with them. So thank you very much, Max.
Thank you,
for
Andy.
I think it's been a very nice conversation about the future. How probably I'm sure that we will speak in few years, and we will. I'm sure that the future will be completely different that we are now envisioning.
Well, otherwise, would it be exciting?
Of course, and I'm being part of it with a partner like Legora, and being able to build this future is for us is the main prize that we have. So thank you very much for all the help, for coming here to join the podcast, and I'm looking forward to keep building the future together.
Thank you, Andy. So do I.
So thank you very much for being listening to us, and we look forward to see you again in the next episode of Pérez-Llorcast. Thanks.